All right, you can call it the art of the deal, of the tariff deal. The European Union's pulling plans to put retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods after President Trump's decision for a 90-day pause on tariffs for most nations.
One country not getting a break, China. President Trump raising tariffs on Chinese goods to an astronomical 125%.
Hey guys, you're about to see one of the most explosive moments in economic news this year. President Trump just flipped the global trade game on its head, pausing tariffs for most countries, hammering China with a 125% tariff, and now over 15 nations are scrambling to cut deals with us, guys. You're not going to believe what triggered this move. Who's bending the knee? Stick around, guys. This is the kind of leadership the world hasn't seen in literal decades. Let's roll the clip, then we're breaking it all down.
And a lot went into President Trump's decision to pause the tariffs. He watched Republican senators for an hour on Hannity on Tuesday night and then talked to them for about an hour afterwards, according to the Washington Post. He also gave more authority with public statements to the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, and he watched as our ally Japan started dumping Treasury bonds.
Well, I thought that people were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, you know, they were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid. No other president would have done what I did. No other president. I know the presidents, they wouldn't have done it. And it had to be done.
The pause is met with a pause from the Europeans. The European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen just wrote, "We took note of the announcement by President Trump. We want to give negotiations a chance while finalizing the adoption of the EU countermeasures that saw strong support from our member states. We will put them on hold for 90 days. And the Goldman Sachs decision to pull their recession prediction came after a great day on Wall Street yesterday. The Dow finished up 8%, the S&P up 9.5%, the Nasdaq up 12%. And White House officials want credit, with 15 countries offering new trade deals, 70-plus countries calling to talk tariff rates.
He made, I think, the absolutely right, decisive call to go with really the bigger move rather than announce one or two trade deals, but go with the bigger move so that everybody in the world understands that he means what he says, that he wants people to be fair to American workers.
According to an item in the Wall Street Journal today, President Trump was prepared for the new tariff policy to lead to a recession in the United States, but the concern started growing that there could be a depression. That is what he wanted to avoid. That is why they got ahead of any kind of a decline like that with this pause. Back to you.
And Peter, so you said that the country of Japan was dumping the U.S. treasuries. And that's one of the red warning lights there on the Resolute desk in the Oval Office. But China, who right now is our trade adversary, China owns close to $1 trillion worth of U.S. treasuries. So if they started dumping them, that could be not a good thing.
That would be a problem. And there are also reports now that the Chinese are going to try to essentially take their new position as the White House is trying to make them the bad guys of trade in the world, that they're going to just start flooding the world marketplace with cheaper goods, not only to hurt the U.S., but also to hurt other American trading partners. And so that could be their way around if there is not a deal soon. Obviously, that's something that can't happen overnight, but the Chinese are known for building huge entire cities very quickly. So if they want to start building factories to flood the global marketplace with cheap goods, they could. But it is worth just looking at this whole thing. We don't know how it is going to play out, even today. But a month ago, there were not countries lining up to make trade deals with the United States.
That's right.
And so today, at a minimum, President Trump has completely, he wants to rebalance the economy of the world. We don't know if that's going to work yet, but he has, at a minimum, completely changed the conversation about trade everywhere on the planet.
Peter, you're right. You're absolutely right. And when we were interviewing Kevin Hassett, he said that there we know that we've heard there's 70, 75 countries that have come to the table, or at least called the president. But he said there are 15 countries that have actually turned in deals. He said, we're not sure. I'm not going to tell you which countries those are. And he said, I'm not sure if we're going to accept those deals. There might have to be some negotiations. But that's very promising. And you're absolutely right. We're in a much better place today than we were a month ago.
That can't be understated.
Right. Are you hearing anything, Peter? Any of your sources telling you which countries might have turned in these deals?
That was big news on Fox and Friends 20 minutes ago from Hassett that there are 15 deals in theory. We don't know, other than the Japanese and the South Koreans and the EU are at the top of the list. And so they might not want to shake things up too much every day. But the next time, this is a president who is very, very good at changing the subject and changing the conversation. We saw that yesterday. So they might let yesterday's pause breathe a little bit. And the next time that they need to change the conversation, that is probably when we are going to get an announcement about the first deals.
All right. Thanks, Peter. Brian, let's bring you back in, because I think the conversation has to go to, look, no matter what deal is done, it's a lot better than what we were getting for these other countries to begin with. Plus, we've isolated our number one enemy, China.
Yeah, and they probably have a few moves, like they have our debt, but they've really stopped buying our debt. Right now, the futures are going to give back. It looks like we're off 500 points when we open up. I'm very curious to see why that would be. But I also see that when we look at the import-export balance, it's a little bit more balanced in years past, but U.S. exports to China, $143 billion. Okay, that'll hurt because they upped our tariffs. But the U.S. imports from China, $438 billion. What we got to do is two things. We got to massively look for other places to make our stuff while baking it at home. In the short term, we're not going to be able to start all of a sudden making shirts and going into textiles and getting all the parts for cars. So in the meantime, the Philippines could do a lot of textiles. Vietnam, drop that 26 or 46% on Vietnam. Allow these people, these garment makers to be their shirt makers, the people that make our clothes. They want to go to Vietnam, go do it. That's the way to show China we don't need them, because we have to decouple. That's the message.
Yeah.
All right, stocks soaring after President Trump announcing a tariff pause for most nations those are for the reciprocal tariffs. Yesterday, the S&P 500 surging 9.5%, its third best day since 1940.
The president, however, is still pushing aggressively against China, raising tariffs even more against the communist nation to 125%. Meanwhile, for the other nations, the reciprocal tariff have been paused for 90 days, but a 10% baseline will still be in place.
We've got the best guest to talk about this. He is the director of the National Economic Council. Kevin Hassett joins us from the North Lawn. Good morning to you, Kevin.
Good morning.
Hey, guys.
I see that shortly after they paused, you went into the Oval Office with some other high-ranking officials, and you talked about, among other things, the fact that one of the things that was freaking people out is there was a gigantic sell-off in the U.S. bond market. And U.S. bonds, treasuries, have always been seen as the gold standard around the world, and if there are cracks in that, we're all kind of screwed.
Well, as an economist, I can say that my judgment yesterday morning, as I was watching interest rates climb up quite a bit, that a lot of the people who normally buy U.S. treasuries were wondering whether the president was really serious about what he was saying when he was saying that we're going to renegotiate better deals for the American people. And I knew he was serious, and he knew he was serious. And we had been working on plans for the negotiations for weeks, and even had a couple of deals lined up that maybe were close to being announced. And we're getting ready to talk about, well, what's the next stage? What's the next step for the negotiations? I even yesterday morning was on a call with the president, with the Swiss president, talking about a Swiss trade deal. And so the point is, everything was moving. But then when the bond market started to say, hey, we don't believe these guys, I think the president decided on his own, really, that, well, we're going to announce this anyway. We might as well do it today. There's a little bit of an extra push for the bond market. But this is the plan that he was pursuing all along.
So did you know about that? Thank you, Lawrence. Did you know this was part of his plan? He was going to do this on Thursday?
I knew that he had options that he wanted us to prepare in a very orderly fashion, unanimity between everybody from Peter Navarro to Howard Lutnick to Scott Bessent to me, and Vice President. He was also in on it. And the fact is that there were options for the president. That's always what he likes to see. Mm-hmm. And then he had the options and he was thinking about them. And then he made, I think, the absolutely right, decisive call to go with really the bigger move rather than announce one or two trade deals, but go with the bigger move so that everybody in the world understands that he means what he says, that he wants people to be fair to American workers. And we saw so much progress in the last few weeks once we started to announce that we're going to do this and then actually do it, that the president was sure that the process was being successful and so he could move ahead to the next step.
So, Kevin, let's talk China. And when you look at some of the numbers, it's pretty stunning. When you talk about the U.S. exports to China, it's $143 billion. The imports from China are $438 billion. But when you look at the deficit with China, it's negative $295 billion. So was the goal, Kevin, always to isolate China and push them to the negotiating table? It doesn't look like they're caving yet, but it looks like that's the president's goal, right?
Well, I think his first goal always was to advantage American workers. Remember, when China entered the WTO, then for the next 15 years, real wages in the United States went down by about $1,200 cumulatively. So all those cheap products didn't make welfare better off for American citizens because wages went down by more than prices because of the low demand for American workers.
Right.
And so what President Trump's been doing is he's been trying to drive up demand for workers, drive up wages so that real welfare improves, and he's highly confident that this policy will accomplish it. Right. There's going to be a lot of disruption for China right now because they've been dumping cheap goods into the U.S. And doing so, I think, as a strategy that it has national defense implications. And so what's going on right now with China is that the ships that are filled with Chinese products don't know where to go. They're stuck in port. The factories that are making the Chinese goods are going to have to slow down because they don't have ships to load the stuff into. Right. And that's going to put a lot of pressure on China to stop its bad acting and to come to the table.
Yeah. And Kevin, before the president paused the tariffs, the Wall Street Journal says, and they talked to a couple of people who are close to the president's thinking, the president knew, and he talked about how, we're all going to feel some pain. You're going to feel some pain. He knew there was pain. He knew the tariffs could trigger a recession. His worry was that it would cause a depression. Did you know that the president was concerned with a depression?
I think that you have to think about what the scenarios were that we were playing out for the president. One scenario is that we come out with tariffs and non-tariff barriers that are at the level of our trading partners and they don't respond. And in that scenario, it's going to be pretty bad for the global economy. But the good news is that we're making America great again with Trump policies, but we're also rebuilding the global order because the other countries that are coming to the table are more or less going to be adopting Trump, anti-globalist policies as well. And it's going to be great for their workers, and it's going to be great for our workers as well.
Kevin, what about the deals? We want to see deals. We want to see win after win after win. We want to see countries coming into the White House signing deals. When will that happen? Right. And which countries?
Well, I'm not going to name the countries yet. In fact, we have a meeting today with all the top principals where we're going to present to the president a list of what we think his priorities might look like. And then I'm sure he's going to have his own ideas about where to move things. But I can tell you that we've already got offers on the table for more than 15 countries. 15 countries. Great. Now, that doesn't mean there's a deal, but it means that you've heard the much larger number for people who call and they want to talk. But there are specific offers on the table, I've been informed from USTR, of about 15 countries right now. And so this is moving fast. The thing that I joked about when we said the 90-day pause is that we're going to go around the world in 80 days and have 10 days of rest. That's our plan.
Good plan.
Okay, guys, if you haven't already, go ahead and like this video. If you're glad to see a president finally standing up for American workers and putting this country first, not last. Now, let's talk about what just happened because this was historic. President Trump, in the face of pressure, fear-mongering from globalists, and economic pain, called their bluff. He announced a 90-day pause on most global tariffs, a move that gave allies like the EU and Japan room to breathe, while slamming China with a massive 125% tariff, guys. When you start thinking about that number, it's absolutely insane. Guys, that's right. The gloves are officially off. This wasn't just an economic play. This was a power move at the highest level. Trump listened to Senate Republicans. He watched the markets. He saw Japan dumping U.S. treasuries, and then he acted decisively. He took a calculated risk, and it's paying off. Over 15 countries have now put trade deals on the table, not just reached out. I'm talking actual offers. Guys, that's leverage. That's what happens when you lead from a position of strength instead of apologizing to the world every 5 minutes. You think China was ready for that kind of move? Not even close. And now they're scrambling. They're threatening to flood the market with cheap goods. But guys, here's the deal. Trump just exposed them. Not just to America. He exposed them to the world. You think this would have happened under Biden? Please. Biden's too busy. He was too busy sending billions of dollars overseas and reading off cue cards to play chess with global economies. Guys, no. Trump looked at the $295 billion trade deficit with China and he said, enough. And let's not miss this, guys. The market soared. The Dow was up 8%. S&P 500 up 9.5%. NASDAQ 12% surge. Even Goldman Sachs pulled their recession warning after that announcement, guys. That tells you all you need to know. The markets believe in strength. This is more than trade policy. It's about reclaiming sovereignty, rebalancing the global economy, prioritizing American jobs and American strength. And guess what? It's working. Let me ask you guys. Is this the bold leadership that we need more of? Should we be even tougher on China? Guys, are you sick of the media downplaying these massive wins? Let's talk about it down in the comments down below, guys. I read every single one. I want to know what you think about all this as the news is breaking like at a crazy rate. Let me know what you're thinking, guys. Make sure to subscribe if you're tired of mainstream narratives and want more content that actually tells the truth from a conservative, Christian, unapologetic lens. And guys, if you want to go the extra mile and help support this channel, consider becoming a member today. Every dollar helps us keep building this platform and getting this message out. God bless you guys. God bless the United States of America. Appreciate everyone. I'll catch you later with another update.